This is where Ozan is singing the world into existence. Uncle Andrew says, "Of course, it can't really be singing," he thought. "I must have imagined it. I've been letting my nerves get out of order. Who ever heard of a lion singing?" And the longer and more beautiful the lion sang, the harder Uncle Andrew tried to make himself believe that he could hear nothing but roaring. A
Yeah, right.
fascinating moment where he
Yeah,
convinces himself that Aslan is not singing. It's the loneliness point, like you said, he's cut, and that's what they say hell is, right? Hell is being cut off from everybody and being
yeah,
all by yourself. He's
yeah.
punished himself. He punishes himself.
The host of Joe's Great Books is Joe Sharkey. He teaches at the University of Washington, Tacoma, but is not speaking for or sponsored by the UW.
Hello?
Hey, Tony.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm trying to get my laptop propped up. Joe's Great Books is high tech, so here's what I'm using to prop up my computer. Olives.
All right. With in terms of high tech, is this okay that I'm just wearing my hoodie? Is that not bad?
Absolutely.
'Cause that's one of the things I like to do with my kids. I'm like, look, I'm an angry teen. They don't really laugh that much at it, but I'm glad you laughed.
I was actually thinking about just wearing my bed head, and so I kept it until
Yeah.
then it wore off because I wanted to be
See,
like Uncle Andrew. Seems like resting face bedhead, or,
you're
resting
just
hair
taunting
bedhead.
me with you're taunting me with your Uncle Andrew fetish.
Do you have overhead lighting on?
This is as good as the lighting as let's see, how do I do this? Is that any better?
And you do look a tiny bit dark, but
I know. I'm trying to figure out
we'll just tell people you're in prison
ex- exactly. I'm in a monastery. I'm
because
praying.
after all,
That's
I
what
mean, look how he dresses.
yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. How
Wait,
are you doing? How's everything going?
at a crime.
Okay.
Things are going.
Are you moved into your new house? What's the story?
We're still not in it because stuff keeps happening, but we gave notice on the place that I'm in now. Somewhat amusingly, we actually not very amusingly, we have this neighbor who's just crazy and
Oh.
is just a problem. And she a few years ago, she built a fence and put it on our side of the property, and she knew what she was doing. And so we're gonna have to wrestle with her. And I just found out that nobody will help you with that. Like the city and the county, they won't mess with it. Even if
Oh wow.
you can just show them,
Thanks.
like the contractors put a kind of a cool thing where they put stakes in the ground, and then they put lasers going up so that you could, because we're on a slope, like the back alley is I don't know, 10 feet higher than the front street on the, so to see the line, and there's a bunch of trees in the way, so they just put these lasers that go straight up
Oh,
uh,
that's
into,
cool.
into the sky, and you can see exactly how far she's on our property. But she's crazy, and it won't matter. But we're hoping to get moved in by Halloween, and that'll be
Okay,
super cool.
cool.
And then the next Joe's Great Books podcast will happen from the fully restored original JGB studio, which is just a room that had bay windows that I liked. But the tree burned down. So it's been a long haul, but we're really eager to get in there. Yeah, thanks for checking. Things with you. Anything new to say?
No, other than the excitement of the Three Kings,
Let's
I'm
get
very
right to
excited
it.
about that.
Let's get right to it. Here,
Yeah,
I
all right.
have.
All right.
Is it
I
backwards? Is it backwards to you?
no, it looks right. It looks
Okay,
correct. It looks correct.
good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is a new novel, and I think you told me,
Yeah.
Tony, it's published, or it's targeted for young adults, but like the novels of C.S. Lewis that we're going to talk about today, it is for kids of all ages. And
Exactly.
I was just looking at when I should just give the title. Obviously, it's Three Kings.
Hmm.
Tony Lang. I know that guy. I'm pretty much his best friend, and he's one of
Exactly. You're my only friend.
and he's one of my good friends.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Probably the reverse. But as you know, I tried to read it on that trip we went on with our pals, and I didn't find time. But I did read the acknowledgments. Very touching, very good writing. I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward to
Thank
reading
you.
this. And it's the artwork is very cool. Wrap around.
A quick story about the artwork. I don't know if I say it
You
in the
told me. Tell me
acknowledgments,
again.
but that
Yeah.
I originally wanted to get an AI cover because it was cheap
Right.
because it's free. I could just get a cover made by AI and it didn't mean anything. So my oldest son, who is 26, Theodore, he said as soon as I told him that, he's like, "That you cannot do that. I'll be so mad at you." Objected strongly. So
Right.
I got an artist and through this kind of website, and it turns out I'm not sure it's a man or a woman, but the person is Ukrainian, which I felt good
Really?
about. Like I'm supporting Ukrainian kind
Wow.
of, and did a great, like went back and forth with me, did a terrific job, I think. I really like the artwork, so it was really well done. So yeah, so that's a good lesson for everybody. Yeah.
That is super cool. So you a Ukrainian. So you basically paid for a grenade. I waited. I
Exactly.
don't know if you could tell. I
I'm
paused.
defeating Vladimir Putin with my cover.
I paused because I thought that was maybe an off-color joke that we would snip out. So we'll see. But you laughed at it, so I guess we're going with it.
I think it's
And
good. Yeah, yeah.
I'm
Thank
like,
you. Thank you for the prop.
am I this guy or that guy? Or am I just
Yeah, I don't
a
know.
composite of all three?
Yeah.
They do bad things, apparently. Anyway, congratulations on this. That's a
Thank
heck
you
of
very
an
much.
achievement.
Thank you.
Very,
Yep.
very cool. For people who don't haven't watched every issue, every episode of the Joe's Great Books podcast, Tony is in international relations, which I think is pretty close to political science. But
Yes.
if there's controversy about the names, right? I mean, it's like, which is the better name? I actually like IR. I think it seems to get right to the point.
Yeah,
I think it probably fits what you do better. Like
it does.
you're not spending your career trying to pretend that you are a hard scientist.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah,
you are
exactly.
just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
analyzing the world
Yeah.
with the wisdom that you bring to Three Kings, available at Amazon and anywhere besides Amazon.
I think just Amazon right now.
Amazon.
Maybe it'll be expanded wider, but just Amazon right now.
I
Yeah,
mean, there
yeah.
pretty much aren't any other stores besides Amazon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So anyway, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm proud of you. I look forward to reading it. Um, and we may not want to spend any time on this, but last time we talked, when we did Animal Farm, we talked about TV shows that we were watching. And
Yes.
if you had anything, like we talked about Adolescence and Severance, but I'd watched Adolescence, you had not. You had watched Severance. I'd only watched that first episode.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you ever get to Adolescence?
I did. So I'll say about Adolescence, what a powerful show. I mean, the show literally, I like at the last part, I cried. I mean, I was just like, as a father, and I'm sure with
Oh
you,
yeah.
with the son, I mean, it was just such a, I mean, and I could not kind of handle it after. I was just like, I
Really?
can't believe it. And the way the father's kind of not sure how to respond to this. I mean, luckily, none of my children have been through anything like that, but it was just such a powerful show. I thought it was a brilliant show. I mean, I loved it. So
I
yeah,
did too. I can see why it hit home for you because I mean, after all, you're filming this or recording this podcast from the joint in solitary
right.
with your hoodie on. You've been such a good dad to steer your children away from your criminal life.
Right, right.
Okay, so now I can finally tell somebody. I think this is the only time I've actually explained this because nobody I know has watched it all the way through.
Okay.
Yeah, or at least nobody that's in town. Maybe my daughter, but she's out of state. So I'll tell you in live for the tens of people who are watching our podcast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this is totally true. Remember, I said that I can never figure out who done it in mystery
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
Well, this time for some reason I thought I was getting signals from the show, and I actually thought that it was obvious because you go from the first show and it ends with the videotape of the crime, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it seems like okay, deal done. And I haven't watched it since before we did our last podcast in the
Yeah.
spring, so I'll probably get stuff wrong. But then the next show you start off with a kid, and I waited a week between episodes even though they were both available. But one of his friends, it turns out to be one of the friends of the guy who we find out
Right.
the crime, and I thought he looked just like him, and so I thought maybe it was him, but they had fast forward a year or two, and maybe they just
Yeah.
weren't that long in the filming. I thought it was actually the same actor, and he's
Yeah.
talking all nervous to his friend about it and saying, do you think he did it? And the other friend's like, yeah, they got him on tape. And the first guy seems to be suggesting that like he's got a secret, and it turns out he does. And
Yeah.
at the end of that episode, I think the cop chases him down. If you can't tell,
Yeah.
we're spoiling the hell out of everything we're talking about. But
Right. Right. We're giving it away for spoiler alert. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
catches the kid, and it turns out that eventually you find out that the only secret he was keeping was that he owned the knife, right? That he
Yeah.
gave to the kid who killed the girl. And so the whole thing seemed to me before you got to that point where those things were confirmed, I was like the crazy guy in the Home Depot or whatever that the dad goes to in the third episode to buy stuff for
Yeah.
he has to clean off the graffiti on his car that people who hate his kid put on his car. And there's some like creepy paranoid conspiracy theorist employee who says something like, hey,
Yeah.
man, we know he didn't do it, we know he's innocent.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah. So here's the thing, I thought that they were actually sending us signals because I thought
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they showed the kid. I mean, when the conspiracy guys showed up, I thought, oh wait, I must be wrong because you're clearly not supposed to trust that guy.
Right.
But early on, the kid was just so sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And he, even when, even in part of the second episode, which was just magnificent with that's the one where the whole thing is interview with the counselor,
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
psychiatrist, psychologist.
Yeah.
And of course he becomes crazy and super violent and threatening and convincing. Great actor, that kid.
Yeah. Oh, that kid's brilliant. Yeah. Yeah.
At some point he admitted, I think to her, that he felt like a loser and that everyone called him an incel and that he couldn't get a girlfriend. I mean, he's like, in middle school or junior high or something.
Yeah.
So it's kind of early to start your career as an incel, so that's part of the cruelty
Yeah.
of the show. And they did a good job of showing how much that kid kind of suffered and how that exploded. But I thought that he was such a good kid that we are going to find out that he was covering for the other kid, the one that was nervous.
I
And
thought the same thing.
oh, you
I
did?
thought exactly the same thing. Yes. Yeah.
What?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, good. I just wanted to see if I was the one guy in the whole world who was creepily, disturbingly rooting for the murderer.
No, no, because they do it so well. They present the kid as if he's like you said, he's a really sweet kid. He's got this good relationship with his parents, it seems. I mean, he kind of goes into his room, but yeah, I agree with you. Like I thought for sure he's covering for the other kid. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, good. So maybe it turns out I'm not crazy and that they were sending a signal, and I'm just the typical dupe who grabs hold of the first, suspect in the mystery movie or the mystery
Yeah,
novel.
yeah, yeah,
And they
yeah.
throw out for the, like they don't even really expect anybody but the dummies to think that's the real one, and I'm just the dummy that did that.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you seem like such a sweet kid, and there's like one line that I think the psychologist took as kind of like decisive that he was scary is that he said that the reason he asked this girl out or whatever he did is that he knew she had been dumped and that
Yeah,
although normally he wouldn't consider himself to be on her level because he thought of himself
right,
as spit, he thought
right.
that she was vulnerable. And I thought that was kind of a tender, sympathetic moment. I didn't
Yeah,
think that he was trying to attack. I just think that it was
yeah,
kind of sweet that he thought, okay, maybe actually somebody that I would like to to date or be with might
yeah,
actually be interested in me. And he seemed like he really was sympathetic about how she had been treated. I think the guy had said something
yeah,
about her online, if I recall. So
yeah, yeah,
anyway, so
yeah,
I was a little disappointed that it just seemed like I guess I didn't just didn't see the kid having it in him to do that. And I think maybe that's supposed to be part of the
yeah,
shock value.
yeah,
Um, and I know there's certain controversies about the way it was portrayed, and is this the way in which those kinds of crimes happen in the UK,
yeah,
or is
yeah,
there other things involved? Um,
yeah.
maybe that'd be another podcast, and you could tell me all about it. You can maybe
Well,
explain.
I'll tell you one just quick thing. I mean, you said it before with the one other boy's friend was worried about finding out it was his knife. And there is a context here in the UK that, because guns are basically illegal, like you can use them for hunting, but like you can't get guns like you can in the US. So
Right.
knives become this thing that various governments have tried to ban, and they have to figure out like how do you ban a knife because you use it for cooking? Like there's certain kinds of knives
Ah.
that become legislatively problematic. So it's a really interesting. So there, like that makes sense more to a British audience, like why
Let's
that
see.
kid would be worried about having a knife. An American audience be like, why didn't he just get a gun? I mean, you know what I mean? There's a weird way in which that doesn't translate maybe to the U.S. context. But yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
very much for that. That does make sense now that you explain it. Although I'm still puzzled because I mean everybody on X Twitter knows that Scottish girls walk around with not just a knife but also an axe.
right, right. Exactly. I have to worry about that all the time in St. Andrews. Yeah, yeah. You're right. Watch out. Yeah.
Here comes this 5-year-old, but she's armed. So
Okay, so
pretty
tell me
funny.
what you thought of what did you think of Severance? Give me
I
your take
love
on
I
Severance.
love Severance. I
Yeah,
have
brilliant.
creative person's envy. I'm like, man, I wish I had done that. So that's like my highest compliment is if I'm jealous.
Yeah,
So I thought it was super fun. Totally love
yeah,
Ellie or Helly,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
all the characters are super cool. And
yeah.
it's just like we talked last time about how like you are almost done with it. I think with
I was
season.
just yeah, just about finished it. Yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah,
about finished it. I'd only read or watched the pilot because I was too cheap to buy HBO. Uh,
yeah.
it's on it or Apple. Which one is it? I don't
I
know.
think it's Apple. I can't remember what
Apple.
it's on. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, on Apple. So there's art free ad. Tens of people will watch. But anyway, so we did have time over the summer to watch it all together. And mainly it was just my oldest son and I that really liked it. I was surprised that
yeah,
my wife and my daughter and my younger son weren't all that engaged because I thought it was wonderful. And I couldn't see why anybody wouldn't really be gripped.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I found it kind of slow, and I liked it that sometimes it was slow. But
yeah, yeah,
um, anyway, the thing we talked about at that time because I had Googled it to see what why people thought it was good. And I was trying not to spoil it for
yeah.
myself. I didn't. And I guess they hadn't gotten to the end of the second season yet. That's maybe why you hadn't seen
Okay.
the last show. And some people had said that we're approaching the end, but some people have been concerned that all the weirdness is not going to have an explanation, and it's going to be
Right.
Lost, which I'd never seen, or like Twin Peaks, which to my regret I did see,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
which seemed to me just super fun and engaging and creeping you out about stuff. And you're thinking, man, I can hardly wait till they explain it all. And you get to the end of this,
yeah,
it's like there's nothing there, motherfucker.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you fell for it. Lots of ads sold. But anyway, you would agree, would you not, with me that they are totally coming up with the goods?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just think it's just as brilliant the way they've done it. And the one thing I realized I don't know if we talked about it last time, but the fact that I love that the one character, his boss, who kind of leaves and then is is what's her name from the X-Files. It's the same actress. Is it the
Who?
same? No, no, it's not the
His
same actress.
boss?
No,
His
no,
boss?
no. What's her name? The woman. Oh, she's not from the X-Files, but she's been in weird things. Patricia Ark, is it? Oh, I
Patricia
can't remember.
Arquette, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. She's
Yeah,
been in weird. Now I'm confusing her with what's her name, but she's been in weird things before, and I just love her character. Like, I
yeah,
think her character is so interesting. Just that she can live next door to the guy
yeah.
and kind of pull this off in a
It was
way,
super fun.
but
Yeah.
then her story gets way more complicated. Like, I just like at first you're just like it's just about the main character, but it becomes that all these other people get. I think it gets really good. Yeah, yeah. So
I agree with you, Tony.
yeah,
He's a
right.
wonderful character. Now back to work. Um,
Exactly.
was my
Yeah,
maiden imitation of Patricia Arquette, who
yeah, that's
is
good. Yeah,
I
yeah,
forget her name, but yeah, it's like all the characters kind of come to life. It's like you think that they're
yeah, yeah,
flat, but even the co-workers, the black guy, and
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, yeah,
come to life, and
yeah,
they're just all delightful. And I love the fact
yeah.
that it's also isolated in that little, it's just kind of like it makes it into a fable because they're off in this fairy tale land of nowhere, like the Tempest of Shakespeare.
Exactly,
It's just
exactly.
this office, and you go to explore, and the place to explore is down the hall.
Down the hall, which is like the wood between the worlds. If you
Let's
think
talk.
about what a transition. I did that on purpose.
You did.
Transition to our magician's nephew. I'm
Totally
good like that.
spontaneous, totally organic, totally
Yeah,
impromptu.
yeah, not forced at all, right?
Well, no, it actually worked very well. Tony's
Yeah,
up. This is like 3 in the morning for him in Scotland, I think. And yeah, people don't know. Tony is live from Scotland. He's not actually in the joint. He's just in a fairly dimly lit room, kind of like mine,
yes,
except
yeah,
for even
yeah,
though if people can't, if we haven't mentioned it before, it looks like it's really sunny outside. It's totally dark outside. I apparently just don't understand lighting, among all sorts of other things about podcasting, like how to build an audience. But
right, exactly.
magicians,
Yeah, we're
magicians,
slow. You're slowly doing that. I think it's happening. It's gonna coalesce soon. I think. Yeah.
I think about half the people watching us right now are bots. We'll see how it goes. We'll make it big sometime. Um,
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good.
The
Yeah.
Magician's Nephew. Now,
Yes.
so I didn't even remember, but I looked it up. That says that it was first published in 1955, and I don't think I think there's a controversy among C.S. Lewis fans that they've changed the order. It's different from the order that you and I got in the box set when we got these for
Yep.
sixth grade
Yep.
graduation or whatever. And supposedly this is book one because at some point Lewis told them that this is the way in which he would recommend people read the book. Am I going the right way?
Right.
And
Right. Right.
I actually think it's a mistake, but I mean, I don't really care. But I think it's a mistake because when we thought we'd do Narnia, I thought I'd just go back and read it from the beginning, which was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And so
Yeah.
I did read that. Then you recommended Magician's Nephew, which is maybe my favorite of the books. And I haven't read them all since I was, in that middle school age whenever I got my box sets.
Yeah.
For me, it's fairly new. But The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is a classic. And if you read that first and then you go to Magician's Nephew, you
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, it has a certain charm if you go in that order because
Yeah.
you have to kind of
Yeah.
rewind the tape and see where the wardrobe came from, where
Yeah.
the street light, why the street light happens to be out in the middle of nowhere in
Right.
the woods and all that
Yeah.
fun stuff. So I suppose if you do it in the opposite order, you still have the same kind of what I think somebody calls it like a callback, just a
Yeah. Yeah.
connection between the text. But I think it's super fun book, and I was pleased that when I said, "Hey, we could do Narnia," you said that the Magician's Nephew is theological, and I think you might have said the Last Battle is super theological too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I agreed with you, and it's so much fun to read Lewis and see him um, communicating in this most simple of ways. The child's story or a young adult story,
Yeah.
things that you can dig deep into, and certain profound theological ideas that
Hmm.
really impressed me. It reminds me of what we were saying about stories way back when we did our Tolkien on fairy
Yeah.
stories episode,
Yeah.
and that and this is the kind of thing that I think Jordan Peterson is saying quite a lot these days. That there's something about certain stories
Hmm.
that they're not as you might tend to think, an oversimplification,
Yeah.
dumbing down of sometimes important, sophisticated ideas
Yeah.
that adults can understand if you put them in
Yeah.
adult form, as if that's the truer form of the truths.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
seems to me that this story, like say, I happened to talk about the book of Genesis yesterday in class,
Hmm.
and the fall of man. And
Yeah.
you read that story and it's like one page, less than one page.
Yeah.
It's just so packed, it's so dense with meaning that you can continue to unpack it.
Absolutely.
It's not that the story is somehow, a less sophisticated version of the adult version of the story. It's the adult version of the story would be one interpretation that would, kind of nail the butterfly to the wall. Get
Yep.
get
Yep.
certain parts right, verbalize certain parts, maybe make them sharper. I'm not pretending that, I mean, that's what I do for a living is nail butterflies to the wall. But
Yeah. Yeah.
putting it into that form is helpful. But it's only ever piecemeal. There's always more
Yeah.
in the story, so it's not like the story is
Absolutely.
a rough draft or a kiddie menu
Yeah.
of the real thing. It's actually the real thing itself. It's just that you know packed it, crammed, they're jam packed into a something like a diamond.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you and I were young and we got the books, we got a Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then they kind of went in the order in which he wrote them. And then later, the version I have now, which I bought, I think for my oldest son when he was a lot younger, starts with the Magician's Nephew. And at first I thought, okay, yeah, that makes sense because it's chronological, so to speak.
Right.
But then I think I think that's right about, yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Right.
there you go. I think that's right about what you're saying. Like, there's a way that maybe I'm hearing you right. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe might be read better first because, like, the fact that she throws it creates the lamppost by throwing the thing, like that, you could just pass over that in this book if you hadn't read the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It'd be like,
Yeah.
cares what happened there? And there's all these kind of hints that then are way more interesting once you've read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So I'm kind of with you. Like, maybe it's better to read it in the order that he wrote them rather than the kind of chronological order of the story. So that would be one. That's kind of my one initial thought. The other, I should say, I'll give a little biographical thing about why I love this so much. I probably read these when I was 8 or 9 or something really young, like
Yeah.
before I read Tolkien, and so they were kind of an entryway into Tolkien and stuff. And they
Yeah.
were the first real chapter books that I read. I loved them. They were
Yeah.
my
Oh
favorite.
wow, that
Yeah,
was early.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can remember my parents buying them, and I think my mom and dad had some sort of vague idea. Well, these are Christian, so it's okay for him to read. And this is the
Right.
time, right, when you and I were younger, when Dungeons and Dragons was like a scary, like there might be people out there killing each other in sewers. Remember that whole like story?
Oh
We had
yeah.
to, because I was
Yeah.
totally into the fantasy stuff, and I love that. But they're
Yeah.
like, this is safe, so he can read this. One interesting story as I got older in life. So when we were at Notre Dame, sorry, I don't want to go too far into a biography here, but
This is
when we were
fun.
at
Keep
Notre
going.
Dame, if you remember the Last Temptation of Christ, the movie
Yeah.
came out. So
Yeah.
that was like
Right.
88, 87 or 88 or something.
Sounds right.
And my aunt, who is now like 95 and who I'm friends with on Facebook, so hopefully she'll see this when we actually publish it. She was a huge influence on me kind of spiritually, and she's a lifelong Catholic, goes to mass every day. She's just a wonderful woman, has like 10 kids, so very, very Catholic. And when that movie came out, my brother Jim and I were at Notre Dame, and I can't remember how this came about, but she found out that we must have been home over the summer, and we said we liked the movie. And she's like, "You cannot like that movie. You must come and talk to me." And we're like, "Okay, Aunt Martha, we'll come and talk to you." So we came and talked to her. We had coffee with her or something, and she tried to convince us. And Jim and I, young, we're enthusiastic liberal Catholics. We're like that we could do whatever we want. But later in life, I realized she was hugely influenced by C.S. Lewis. She came to London or came to Oxford at one point to go see all the Lewis sites and stuff.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
so C.S. Lewis was hugely important for her spiritual life, and I think still is. And it's her that really made me realize when I read it as a kid, I was like, yeah, I think there's a Christian thing here. I don't care. She made me, and I've now read like all of C.S. Lewis's apologetics as much as I can read.
Wow.
I've read his science fiction stuff. Like, I think
Yeah.
he's my favorite person, probably because of her. So, like, this book I now read through the lens of my faith and not just as a great story. And it's probably due to my Aunt Martha, which is, interesting. And the last thing I'll say about her, she's a Trump person. So I completely disagree with her about
Yeah.
politics, but she's a great person, has this great faith and has huge influence on me. So it's one of these examples, like, we've got totally political different views, but she's, I think, a great person and has helped me understand Lewis. So sorry, that's a little biography about why I appreciate all of Lewis's work, not just the Chronicles of Narnia. Yeah, there you go.
Don't apologize. Right back at you. You've read more of Lewis than I have, but if I just got a year off to do nothing but read one author, I'd probably choose Lewis. Super fun,
Yeah,
super fun.
he's brilliant.
And you
Yeah,
can always go back to him. He's one of the, I really don't, except when I'm teaching, I really don't go back to books to read them for my own pleasure. I always want to read something new. But
yeah,
when I've been teaching some of the same books for 30 years now. So certain books I go back to over and over and over again. And I only teach the ones that are worth doing that for.
yeah,
Lewis was definitely like that and
yeah.
super fun. So good job, Aunt Martha, Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
she had a huge,
You did good with
absolutely.
him,
Yeah.
and bring him a rosary next time you come for visitation. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
some
Yeah.
people are going to think you're really in the jail, especially if I, accidentally edit out the part where I explain you're not.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah.
The point I wanted to make about Lewis is fading from me.
I'll throw one thing in while you're thinking. Obviously, we know that Lewis and Tolkien were good friends, and they
Right,
met at this pub, the Inklings in Oxford,
right,
and they read each other's work, and it was a huge kind of interaction. Tolkien did not like the Chronicles of Narnia because he found that he thought that Lewis, and you could see it in reading this, but particularly in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, that Lewis just brought everything in, like all
yeah,
this mythology and every character from Norse mythology all the way up to Greek,
right,
and like
right.
Tolkien was very particular about creating a world that was consistent, whereas Lewis just was like, I'm going to throw these people in, which I think
Yeah,
is just a fun kind of distinction, a different way to write, I think that's kind of cool to think about.
yeah, he was. He does seem kind of willy-nilly,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I had forgotten. I don't frequent those websites. I think there's like, I don't know, a big Reddit channel where they do
yeah,
nothing but
yeah.
talk about Tolkien and Lewis.
Right,
And
right.
you might have mentioned this when we talked about the catastrophic
Yes.
concept of Tolkien. That they praise both, but they laugh about how Tolkien will go invent a whole language,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
the backstory for one chapter in his book, and Lewis will
yeah,
just like,
yeah, right,
and,
right,
and get
right.
rid of it. And that is
Yeah.
one of the things I wanted to talk about in this particular book. If I remember what the hell I was trying to grasp, or say in response to what you said about Aunt Martha, I may just come back and sneak it in when you're gone.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
believe
That's
the
fine.
thing
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can see,
yeah,
but it fit right there. I thought, and I really appreciate you saying that. I think that's like when I watch podcasts, I think that personal stuff, when it's connected to the literature or the subject matter, is super fun and super
yeah,
interesting. And it's the kind of thing you can't get just from reading the book on your own. That's what you get with the book
yeah,
club, like this two-man book.
yeah.
For the topics I want to talk about today, and I'll just start off with a couple
Okay.
of points that I think are kind of preliminary, and won't go through too many examples. But it was so much fun reading this, or reading Lewis again, in the way it was fun for me to go back and read Dickens. It's just so much fun to read the language. It's just
Yeah,
having so much fun being clever, saying clever things, and that's
yeah,
one of the things that really I think stands out. And it just feels kind of nourishing. One little bit of humor, and I'm not sure if I want to call it gentle humor or or not. But at the very beginning of the book, and at some point we should probably step back and give just a summary of The Magician's Nephew for people that have read it a long time ago, or maybe
yeah.
want to hear the summary in the podcast before they read it. Anyway, it starts off with two kids, Polly, girl, and Diggory, a boy, and Diggory is giving his life story, and it's just
Hmm.
clever the way he kind of takes care of the exposition, to telling his backstory. And he's been crying, and she asks him why he's sad, and he says, "Well, if your father was away in India and you had to come and live with an aunt and an uncle who's mad, who would like that? And if the reason was that they were looking for after your mother, and if your mother was ill and was going to die." So
Yeah,
he just sneaks in
yeah,
all the exposition that you really need to know about this kid
yeah,
um,
yeah,
in
for
that
sure.
one paragraph, and it's just kind of like a delightful cheat. So
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah,
like saying, John so and so went into the, I don't know, the was waiting for his job interview, and he looked over his resume, and then you see his resume, and it gives his entire life there. It's just like, oh, exposition, box check.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the
yeah,
part that I thought was most clever is that the narrator says, then his face went the wrong sort of shape, as
yes,
if you're trying to keep back your tears. And Polly says, I didn't know. I'm sorry. And then it says, and to turn Diggory's mind to cheerful subjects, she asked, is Mr. Ketterly really mad? And that's his uncle, who turns
yeah, yeah,
is kind of mad. But it's just funny
yeah,
because it's so soft. She's trying to cheer him up. And so what does
yeah,
she come up with to cheer him up? Something that, on the one hand, you think is not cheerful at all. Is some guy literally insane? But on the other hand, you're thinking, especially if you're a little kid, that's about the most engaging, distracting, joyous thing question you could ask. Maybe my uncle is nuts.
yeah. Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the part about the face, this is a perfect example of that business where I want to go like this, like a flourish, like a swirl at the end of your signature or something like that
Yeah.
in the ink pen days, I think. And the kind of thing that Lewis gets away with and just must make Tolkien be like, mm. But
Right. Right.
he says, then his face went the wrong sort of shape.
Yeah.
Does as if you're trying to keep back your tears. And I noticed that in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and this book, he does this repeatedly. And again, it's just a kind of a delightful cheat. He just
Yeah. Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
says, you know how it is when someone's about to cry? Well, that's what this was.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to
But
try
okay,
to
but
describe it himself.
let me come back to you on that because I love that line, and
Yeah,
the reason I love it because I think it's true. So I'll be a little gendered here. I think men, boys and men, We don't like to cry in front of other people, right? We're not supposed to cry. Girls can cry. We don't cry. So we scrunch up our face and we do weird things to not cry. So
Ah,
Lewis, I think, is identifying this brilliant kind of truth about the human condition. Again, I'm probably reading way too much into these things, but I just think that's so true. And I know I've done this. Like when I don't want to cry in front of my kids or whatever, I'm like, making these weird faces. And I think
yeah.
he's right. So
I
it's a cheat, but I think it's true in that capital T true. I don't know. What do you think? I mean,
I'm 100% sold about
yeah,
what you said. And when I call it a cheat, I'm like, way to go, way to cheat. I mean, that's what
right,
art
right,
is.
right.
I was
Yeah,
tell my students when they're um, writing an essay that you want to write with some art. But
yeah,
if you read an essay and it just seems to happen to come together at the end, as if no one it hadn't planned, and no that guy was just lucky. It just the muse sang and he came up with something that brought everything
yeah.
together. I say, well, sometimes that does happen, and God bless people who have that, but most of the rest of us cheat. And
Right,
when you say you
right.
want to add some art to your essay, think about it. Art is the same root as artifice.
Oh,
It's
right, right. Yeah,
not
yeah,
just
yeah,
art or artisanship, but artifice and
yeah.
also artificial. And so it's like saying that the it's somehow a cheat if the ballerina dances on her toes and twirls and jumps, and you're like, oh, she makes it look like she was born that way. What a cheat! No, the truth
Right.
is she practiced for 100,000 hours to be able to do impossible things with her toes and her feet and everything else, and
Yeah,
make it look like it's easy, right? So anyway,
yeah,
that's often what art is. Now, with regard to what you said about the face scrunching up, I think that's very insightful. I'm not sure if I'm going to credit Lewis with it. I'm definitely going to credit you with it. And I think the fact that he described it that way, and he didn't describe it that way when, say, Polly cries, and I don't remember if he does,
exactly,
Polly does,
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
and it does make sense. So even if he's just reporting, kind of intuitively what he sees, that okay, I'm imagining a little boy crying, and his face is,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
something like
Because
when
I
she's
can remember
screaming.
explicitly my dad saying to me when we were young, "Big boys don't cry," and never said that to my sister, but said that to the us boys, but didn't
Uh,
say that to my
right.
sister. And I think there is, and I don't want to go into is that true about genders or not, but certainly the way I was raised, and I'm guessing the way you were raised, boys aren't supposed to cry. That we got to toughen up. That was a big expression of my dad's and stuff. So I think but I wanted to cry. In my family, I'm considered the most emotional of our kids, even more than my
Really?
sister. So like
Yeah.
my family always is like, oh, Tony's so emotional. And like I could remember trying very hard not to cry in moments when I really wanted to. And so
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's all very true. I mean, I don't cry. I mean, I'm not a wuss. I've never cried. But, but I'll probably cry. I do. No, as I get older, like since I had kids, I mean, your body changes when you get pregnant. And so
Right,
I
right.
think I noted in my late 40s that I would watch like some shit commercial that is
Yeah.
like designed
And you'd
to
cry.
pull your heartstrings. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it turns out that, I don't know, her dog's going to be okay after all or something like that. And therefore you should
Yeah.
buy Geico insurance or some shit. And I'm
Yeah.
like embarrassed in front of myself. I'm like, oh my God, I can feel like the crying urge coming up.
Right. Exactly.
This is a bad commercial.
Exactly. It's
Stupid.
their
It's
fault. Yeah.
designed to make me do this, but then I just don't, cry, but then I write a check to Geico.
Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly. I think Jordan Peterson needs to check out this podcast and think about gender and crying. I think it'd be beneficial for all. Yeah,
The
definitely.
thing about Peterson is that, he's been through the ringer. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
he does kind of cry a lot.
He does cry. I
Um,
know. That's the thing about him. He's interesting in that way. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
So,
so
anyways, okay, yeah.
I'm giving
Sorry.
you
Yeah.
credit for that interpretation of the
Yes.
wrong
Good.
sort of shape, but it's there's something about Lewis that's just so kind of delicious that he says things kind of straight out like that.
Yeah.
So there's so many different passages where he let's see, I'll read a little bit more from
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
page 20 where he does some of the same thing, but it's just kind of nourishing, and the fact that the narrator talks to you, the reader.
Yeah.
He wrote the story for his goddaughter,
Right.
Lucy. Her last name begins with a P, and I can't remember how to pronounce it. It looks like Penviennese or something like that.
Pevensey.
Pevensey,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
that rings a bell now that you said. Uh,
Yeah.
that shows you my prep for this podcast. I didn't figure out how to pronounce the name, but it's just like a grandfather, or I guess a goddaughter with a
Yeah.
kid on his knee and reading it and pausing from the story, and then looking to the child and saying things, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
sweet, and it's very homebound or homely. Page 20. This appeals to common sense. They're describing the rings.
Yeah.
I'm sneaking in the summary as we go. The Uncle Andrew my favorite character, and I think the moral paragon of the story,
Yeah, yeah, right.
happens to come upon these magic rings
Yeah,
from his godmother,
yeah,
Aunt LaFay, which is a
yes.
not a very good disguise of the fact that she is a fairy. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
super
yeah.
joke we make explicit is that she is, so he had a literal fairy godmother.
Yep, yep.
LaFay means the fairy, and so if you read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight or any Arthurian romance,
Yeah,
apparently she's a descendant of Morgan Le Fay, who was also a fairy or a witch. And so
right.
she's describing how enticing they are, the yellow rings and the green rings, and it says they were no bigger than ordinary rings, and no one could help noticing them because they were so bright. They were the most beautiful, shiny little things you can imagine. If Polly had been a little younger, she would have wanted to put one in her mouth. And just the again, it's and again, I use the word cheat, and it's out of admiration. But he just basically says, okay, you remember how you felt when you saw something like this? And he doesn't actually
Yeah,
describe the thing, which is a lot harder to do than just
right.
to say they were the most beautiful, shiny little things you can imagine. Go imagine
Yeah,
it, and you get to,
yeah,
and that's what you're going to do anyway, no matter how particularly
yeah,
he tries to use his
yeah,
adjectives to describe what kind of green and what kind of yellow and all that. And he's when he says no one could help noticing them because they were so bright. It's just I don't know how to put it, but it's appealing to your experience and kind of appealing to the trust you have in the narrator, so that you just buy everything he says. And then that little detail about she would have put one in her mouth if she was a little younger. Um, that's fun too, and it kind of makes you
yeah, yeah,
kind
yeah.
of makes me remember at least dimly, what it's like when you're young and stupid and think everything that's colorful and appealing is
Yeah, right,
should go in
right.
your mouth.
Yeah, right, right, exactly. Absolutely, yeah, yeah. There's a Freudian thing there I think we could think about too. I mean,
I was not going to bring that up. Don't you dare say that about Polly or Lucy or anything.
of course not. No, 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 of course not. No.
Um, the last one, and I've a lot of other pages that do the same thing, but I wanted to go to 135. And I keep giving you page numbers as if we're in the same book. Is this the actual
I think
edition?
it's actually pretty close because I
Okay.
found what you were saying. So yeah, I'm pretty close to
Okay.
where you are. Yeah,
So for
yeah,
people who have one of the other 20 different editions of this, this is chapter 9, and this is part of the creation uh,
yeah,
chronicle, the founding of Narnia, the creation of Narnia,
yeah.
where in just one of the most gorgeous ideas in all of Lewis, I think, is or that namely that Aslan sings Narnia
Absolutely.
into being.
Yeah,
It's just so glorious. And so
yeah,
you of course go back to Genesis, and
yep,
God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. You go forward to the Gospel of John, first verse.
yeah,
Beginning
yep,
was the Word. The word,
yeah,
capital W, is the translation of the Greek logos, which is the word
yep,
for
yep.
reason or the governing principle of the universe, but also language. So he sings it, and it's just such a gorgeous idea. So he's trying to describe, or I mean, Lewis is masterfully succeeding in describing, and he is at this point has been just kind of, I think he's been singing in the terrain, singing the plants
Yeah,
into being. And here he's beginning to sing something new into being. And for I guess I have to give a little bit of summary here. The way what the rings do, you put the rings on, or I guess you put the yellow ring on, and it transports you to what is it? The world between the woods.
the wood between the worlds. The wood between the worlds.
I
Yeah, yeah,
just dyslexic it, switched it.
yeah,
So the wood between the worlds, and then you have all these different pools that
yeah,
dive in, and it takes you to other worlds. And so they jump into one deep into the story. We're probably what 2 3/4 through the story here, and they just happen to be in this place that's utterly blank. It's
yeah,
it's the nihilo, out of which, at least I guess according to some interpretations, all creation was X, was
yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
from
yeah,
out of nothing. Although as far as I can tell, Genesis 1 doesn't read that way. There's a lot
yeah,
of stuff going on; it's just not shaped. But
yeah,
anyway, then Aslan begins to sing, and you see him kind of walking through, and it's like someone is painting a picture in his wake, and he just kind of goes back and forth like he's mowing the lawn and brings everything into being. And so he's brought
yeah,
the land and the light and the foliage into being, and now he does something different. The narrator says, "In a few minutes, Diggory came to the edge of the wood, and there he stopped. The lion was singing still, but now the song had once more changed. It was more like what we should call a tune, but it was also far wilder." And it
yes.
doesn't describe the music, and I'm thinking that's no problem for me, because if he did describe it musically, I wouldn't be able to follow because I'm a musical idiot. But
Me too. Yeah, 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 yeah,
he just talks about the effect. So
yeah,
it says it was what you should call it we should call a tune, but it was also far wilder. It made you want to run and jump and climb. It made you
yeah,
want to shout. It made you want to rush at other people and either hug them or fight them. What a great,
Right, right, right.
and you're thinking, okay, what is this? And if you had to put it in a single word, you would say life. And as you get to the end of it, you realize, well, it's not just any old life. It's not plant life. It's animal life. So this is animal life. It reminds me of a passage in Beowulf where it's in a digression, apart from the main story, about two tribes that are fighting. They come to a truce.
Yeah.
They have a political marriage to unite the tribes, or at least make peace between the tribes. And so
Uh-huh.
one tribe actually stays the winter. And this is like Scandinavia, so very cold winter. They stay the
Yeah.
winter with the other tribe, and they've been kind of repressing the anger and their wounds from this long-standing feud. Uh, and like they see guys come to dinner in clothing or armor with weapons that they took from people they knew. And so
Yeah.
then what happens? Springtime, and the world comes to life again. And you think, oh,
Yeah.
okay, maybe now they'll get over their bloodlust, and they'll have new life, and they'll be brothers and practice the golden rule. No, what happens is as the green shoots spring to new life, so does the bloodlust. And then
Yeah,
they
exactly, exactly. And there's a line. Okay, okay. Let me get a couple quick reactions to what you said, which I love. That's great. I mean, so a couple of thoughts. First is just a quick question. And as you said, like the one thing I always liked, but also didn't like about Lewis, he's talking to you. Would you call that second person? This is I've always never understood what second person is. Like there's first person and third person. What the F is second person? And is Lewis doing that? Tell me quickly, as you put your English literature professor hat on, what does that mean? I mean,
you know very well what second person is. It's what you and I are using right now. It's
right.
simply
Okay, we're talking to each other. Right. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
right now our pronouns are you and you, right? Because we're
Right.
talking
Okay.
to each other. So
Right.
first is I, that's singular. Plural, first plural is we. In
Yeah. Yeah.
English, second is you, singular, and also you, plural. Right?
But as a
Some
narrator, to talk about a narrator in second person,
well,
would
yeah, I
you
mean,
call this book because he says sometimes like you'll remember candy
yeah,
when you were a kid was tasty like this. Is
yeah.
that second person or no?
Yes, that absolutely it is, and
Okay.
you are actually just making it more. You're making my point more formal and therefore more graspable, more crisp.
Okay.
That's a way of putting it. And I was saying that when he pauses to kind of address the reader, that is
Yeah.
exactly what he's doing. The story is in or in third person. He, she, they.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is what they did. Lucy did this. Polly did
Yeah.
that. Andrew did this crazy thing. But that's what happens. So that's the signal that the audience is changing. And
Okay. Got it. Okay. That's helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
goddaughter
Okay.
Lucy. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let me I love the point you're just I love the connection back with Genesis and Logos in John, the Gospel of John. But here's what I think is interesting. And I had not thought of this before until you just said that. So Aslan sings the world into existence, but there's nothing about lyrics. It's about the music. Like he says, there's at one point where they say,
Yeah.
he uses a deeper kind of set of notes. And
Yeah.
again, like you, I'm musically
Yeah.
illiterate, so I have no idea what they're talking about. That creates like dirt or something or trees, and then lighter notes create I don't remember what. But it's interesting that it's so Lewis always, I think, said like, particularly the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, it's an analogy with the Christian tradition. It's not this Christian story. So
Wow.
there's a really interesting distinction here. He's using music rather than language, which God spoke. Like I don't know. That's kind of interesting to think about. I don't know.
I
Like
love
is
that.
why on purpose did he do music rather than Aslan speaking the world into existence?
That's a great insight. And it again, you're kind of correcting me or sharpening what I said because you're right. He doesn't speak, and I'm going to have to go back and read it to be sure. But I think you're right. It's just notes,
It's
tunes,
notes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
not
Yeah.
it's not words. But it's a fascinating choice too because it there are two things that strike me. One is just my amateur biblical hermeneutics, but
Yeah. Yeah.
remember that in the beginning of Genesis it says that in the beginning, this is how things were. And the translation differs, but sometimes the Spirit of God hovered over or brooded
Across the
over the
waters.
waters,
Yeah.
right? And so you think of language and you think of the way in which you produce words. It's the same
Yeah.
way in which you produce, sounds in general, and therefore
Right.
music, tones, singing. But
Yeah.
if you had Aslan speak in words, then he would probably have to say it would be some language that somehow none of them had heard before, but somehow they also understood, right? It would
Right.
have to be
Right.
the Ur language, the source from which all language comes. Instead, what he does is more beautiful than that's what you described. Is he's vocalizing, I think is what people call it
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like the cool backup singers for Pink Floyd in
Right,
Dark Side of the
right,
Moon.
right, right.
That's the best, my favorite vocalizing. But um,
Yeah,
and that is, you could say that's kind of like the or, sound making. And it's also
yeah,
shows you that the difference between, the word in the sense of actual words, language, like the original best of all language, American
yeah.
English. The creator,
Right,
God
exactly.
used to
Go
create the
America.
world.
Yeah.
If it was good enough for my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, it was good enough for me. That's what some famous
Right, right,
house rep said
right.
about the Bible, thinking that it was originally written in English in
Yeah, yeah, right.
the first century. But it connects the spirit of God with the breath of life, right? God makes Adam
Yeah,
in the second creation story, like in Genesis 2. First creation story is just Big Bang God, boom, boom,
right,
let there be this, let there
right,
be that, let there be animals, let there be mankind, male and female. He created them. And then suddenly he's Geppetto from Pinocchio,
right,
where
right.
he's
Yeah, yeah,
whoever made the gingerbread man, who scoops up God or dust or clay, red clay, Adama, I think,
yeah,
life into it. Suddenly he stands up and says, hello.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
shows that
Right. I
Adam,
like God of Geppetto. That's a good one. Yeah, yeah,
he's like a potter god. And as
yeah,
you probably learned some about the documentary hypothesis, the idea that people think that
yeah.
Genesis 1 is from an older document. They call that
Right,
mostly
right.
mostly the P strand. Then you go to Genesis 2, that's mainly
Yeah,
from a much, I might have said it wrong. The the Genesis 1, I think, is thought to be more recent than Genesis 2. So it's like you have two creation stories, and the Big Bang
right.
God is from a time when God had evolved to something beyond anthropomorphic,
Yeah,
polytheistic conceptions of gods who walk in the garden. But then you get to Genesis 2, and it's like, okay, rewind the tapes. Now we got a God who does it with his hands, breathes them into,
yeah,
needs materials, and then he walks um, in the garden, and he walks and they can hear him and they hide from him after they've eaten from the tree.
yeah,
He doesn't know where they are. He says, where are you? I just find Genesis so fascinating. But the way Lewis does it is to go to the more, I think, advanced, developed, sophisticated concept of God, who is spirit. And so, of course, spirit would sing, and breath is, you think of the breath of life. That's what they're drowning out
right,
of the
right.
world. What God is drowning out of the world in the flood, uh,
Yeah,
and that kind of, it seems like that connects the ineffable being of God, the spirit of God, to humankind, and
yeah,
it's a perfect way for him to have this analogous rendering of
yeah,
creation in Narnia, not a redo or a revision or an equation or an identity of the way
yeah,
our world was created, but very close to it. And it's also beautiful because you think about how at the end of Genesis 1 it says, God made mankind in his image. In his
yeah,
image, he created them, I think, and saw that it was good. And what does that mean?
yeah,
Well, people have interpreted that in all sorts of different ways. But if you think, okay, what did we just learn about God? Well, it's that he creates everything. Boom, 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 boom. So
yeah,
what are human beings? They must be creators themselves. And so
yeah,
I'll finally stop after this. You go Greek and you think about the way they thought poets told their stories. We just read the Apology, and Socrates goes around and quizzes everybody. And he says, I talked to the poets to see what they thought of their own poems, and you'd be surprised. Typical guy off the street could interpret their poems better than they could. Why is that?
right, 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 right. Yeah, 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 yeah,
They are inspired by the
yeah,
muse, and inspiration means to, they are breathed into, breathed through. And so they are not the source of the poetry or the song. They are the flute that the God plays through them. So
yeah,
there
yeah,
seems to be
yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
a close, beautiful succession or descent from deity to humanity. But you see that, spirit, breath, inspiration, creation is what connects them all.
Absolutely. No, I know. I think that's so true. All of what you just said. I mean, couldn't agree more. So, okay, but let me, because you had said we should have a summary of the book. Let me give a
Oh,
quick
thank
summary of
you.
the book. I'll give a
Thank
2 second, and because I think the two great characters are Andrew and Jadis. So we'll talk, and we've been texting back and forth about the two of them. So,
Villains.
okay, the quick summary, right, is that which we've already kind of talked a little bit about. So that these two kids meet in kind of London garden, and uh the boy has an uncle Andrew who seems to be linked to magic somehow, and he has these magical rings, and he tricks the girl into using one of them, and she disappears, and so he then coerces the boy psychologically into following her. So they go to this magical world between the woods, or no, wood between the worlds, sorry, wood between the worlds. So they realize you can go to, there's all these puddles, so to speak, or little pools that they can jump into and go to another world. And it's infinite. There seems to be an infinite number of them, which also raises like the Marvel world of the pluriverse or the
Huh.
multiverse or something. You
Yeah.
could see
Yeah.
like Lewis was way ahead of the creators of the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
So and then they jump into one, and it turns out to be a dying world with a huge red sun, which is a
Yeah.
great kind of indicator like we've got a normal sun. and there's all these, astrophysics that say, that a sun will become red and huge. So they
Yeah.
go to this world, and there's nothing moving. I think it's a brilliant description of the world. Nothing is moving. No animals are chirping or making noise. It's completely
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah.
But they go to this hall of images or something, and
Yeah.
they come across this woman who's this huge queen person, and she's very powerful. Her name is Jadis. And then, for various reasons, she takes them back to the or they go back to the wood between the worlds, and she grabs on and goes with them. Then they go to another world, which is blank, and that's the beginning of Narnia. And
Yeah.
so they arrive there together, and oh no, first they go back to London, and there's this kind of great interactions in London where she's riding around and going to jewelry stores and stealing stuff, and
Yeah.
it's terrific. And the Uncle Andrew, the guy that tricked them, goes with her, and etc. And then they go
Right.
back to this new world, Narnia, which is uncreated, and Aslan appears and creates the world. And then there's a whole series of kind of original sin kind of things that happen.
Yeah.
And the kids have to kind of achieve something. They have to achieve this, grab this fruit from this tree, which is the tree of knowledge, kind of biblical, obviously.
Yeah.
And then they eventually make it back to London. Jadis stays in the Narnia world. Aslan stays in the Narnia world. And
Right.
it ends with the boy curing his mother, who was dying with this magical fruit,
Yeah.
which, by the way, that's hugely relevant for Lewis because his mother died very young. And so
Oh,
it's a
okay.
direct reflection of his own life, like his desire for his mother to live. And that also is one that resonates with me. I mean, my mother didn't die when she was young, but she died when I was like in my 30s, which was really, and we were all, it
It's
was a
gotta,
horrible experience to see her die, but it was, and I can remember moments where I'm thinking, God, I wish I had that magical fruit to save my mom. So,
oh
anyways,
God.
that's the kind of story. That's the big story.
Yeah.
And I think, other than Polly and Diggory, the two kids, and Aslan, obviously, you've got then Uncle Andrew, who is the uncle, and then Jadis, who is the queen, who are both fascinating Nietzschean figures. I don't know how you
Yeah.
would
Oh
describe
yeah.
them. They're great.
Absolutely.
So, give me your
Yeah.
take on them. I want to hear what you think. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
let me just, you did a very good job of summarizing a very complex plot, so thanks for doing
yeah,
that. I wanted to just insert a couple of details that I think will be
yeah.
important as we
Good.
discuss
Yeah,
it. But first, I want to say I love the fact that your mom came up. We talked about your mom and the Christmas
yeah.
Carol
We did. Yeah,
with your
yeah, yeah,
brothers, and
yeah.
your mom shaped you in an important way. And I only met your
Absolutely.
mom, maybe once or twice, and I really liked
Once or
her.
twice. Yeah,
She
yeah.
was a great mom, and she was, how shall I put it? She was strong.
She
And
was loud, as we
well,
like to say.
actually,
She
you know
was
what?
loud and strong. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Actually, what I was going to say, and I only met her a few times, but I was going to say,
yeah,
I was literally going to say she wasn't loud, but you could tell she was strong. And when she said things, she meant it.
yeah,
Apparently, I
yeah.
didn't hang around long enough to hear the yelling. But,
Not yelling, but loud. She just was like in a room. She like I'm loud. She was loud, and her laugh was just
oh,
like
okay.
great laugh. Just like
Okay.
it was annoying at times. You're embarrassed when you're a teenager when she's doing this, but then you miss it when you're older. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're
So
embarrassed. Whatever your parents are, you're embarrassed about it when you're a teenager.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
my mom is very different. She's actually very quiet. And
Yeah, yeah,
she has her own kind of strength, but a different sort. And
yeah.
if I were whittle down that introductory
Right, right,
to one
right.
picture, it'll be the picture of her reading to me and my older brother.
Cool.
'Cause,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's what makes you who you are. So, a
yeah.
couple of details that are pretty important. One is that, and you might have mentioned this. I was looking for it, so I maybe skipped over. But Jadis is one of the statues in the dead world,
Yes.
and they are kind of frozen, as it were. And they happen to see this bell,
Yeah.
and they, Diggory and Polly, and they think, there's a bell there. No, look, there's a little bell ringer. I wonder what would happen. And
Yeah.
it's the fact that it's just so dead silent. It
Yeah.
takes you right back to Eden, and it's very
Yes. Yes.
analogous to the tree. And
Yep. Yep.
no one has told him, don't ring this bell.
Yeah.
But
Right.
he can,
Right.
t- he can tell, you can sense dimly that that is a risky thing, and that it's a
Yeah.
kind of bold step and overstepping. And he
Yeah.
rings it, and she comes to life, and all hell breaks loose. People keep trying to ditch Jadis and put the rings on real quick, and she's crafty and smart and super, like you see, like Wonder Woman strong. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
always grab hold of them. And as Lewis says, the way the rings work are like magnets. So if you put one
Yeah.
paper clip on a magnet, then you can attach another paper clip to the first one.
Yeah.
And so she keeps catching them, and that's how she gets back to Earth. I think that one time when they're trying to ditch her.
Yeah.
But then later, after Narnia is created, right, and she has stowed away with them when they go back to or when they go into that world, and so she becomes kind of the the evil or the flaw introduced to this
Right.
perfect nascent world. And
Right.
there's this one really jarring thing that, and I didn't really understand that at first because I thought, that was kind of ballsy that he rang the bell and yes, bad things happen. But there's a point where Aslan has finished creating everything in Narnia, and he goes to talk to her. He rides on the cabbie's horse, which is now
Yeah,
sentient or rational.
yeah,
Strawberry before, I say nay, Strawberry.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And now, what's the new name? Fledge, right?
Fledge.
Fledge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so he rides up on Fledge, and Fledge is kind of, well, I guess you can ride on my back, but I'm not sure that's especially dignified.
yeah,
And the animals are all there's kind of like a leader's council among the creatures Aslan has just created, and they part for him. And Diggory is going to go ask him, could you save my mom? And instead, Aslan greets him with something like, "Oh, here's the boy." And then this like
yeah,
after
yeah,
break.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it
yeah,
turns out he's in the shit because he has corrupted this world. He says, "This is the boy I was telling you about. This is the one who brought," and I forget what the language is, who brought evil into this world. And
yeah.
so he suddenly is what's the guy's name in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? The boy
Edmund.
Edmund. Thank you. Yeah, how could I
Yeah,
forget? He's the Edmund, and he's the
yeah,
one that
yeah,
he has to make amends. And
yeah,
that is one of the things about Lewis that I find so powerful because you know that I struggle with all sorts of aspects of my Catholic faith, and I have the modern bug, the oh don't you can't be serious. This is so backwards and so retrograde.
yeah, yeah,
As Lewis said to his goddaughter Lucy, he said something like, "Well, it turns out I started writing this book for you when you were a few years younger, but it turns out that books grow more slowly than girls, and so
yeah,
now you're probably
yeah,
too old, especially when it gets bound. But
yeah,
too long from now, you'll be young enough to read it again."
yeah.
Right.
I love
And
that
so
line. Yeah, yeah,
that's why
yeah.
people like you love this, love Narnia, and why you write excellent books. I'll bet, like The Three Kings.
Nice. Good reference there. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
But
And
um, it one of the hardest things I think to justify, one of the easiest things to say is just some sort of primitive, atavistic, nonsense from pre-industrial, pre-scientific, pre-rational eras is this baloney about Christ having to die for our sins. And
yeah,
the typical atheist question is something like, well, why doesn't he just forgive you and not kill anybody?
yeah,
Why
yeah,
does
yeah, exactly.
why do you have to have this blood sport or blood what is it, blood debt
Yeah,
paid
yeah, yeah,
by Jesus? And that's one of the ways in which I think the stories make more sense. And what
yeah,
Edmund does by kind of betraying everyone and ratting people out to the witch. And of course, I think Tony made it. I don't know if you made it clear or not, but Jadis is the White Queen, the White Witch.
right. Exactly. And
And,
she becomes the White Queen. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
so we
yeah,
get to see her origin story. So it was fun for me to
yeah,
go from the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then go back to the kind of the origin story of origin stories, right? The whole thing,
yeah,
not just the heroes, but the world. And Diggory, even though he didn't seem to have anything really, any ill intent except curiosity,
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah,
rings the
yeah,
bell, and he's accountable for it. And so
yeah.
Lewis is really good at keeping in mind the mercy of Christianity. And as of
Yes,
course, at
yes.
a certain point, after he kind of takes him to court and gets him to agree to do right, there is a certain very tender moment where you think, man, he's being really hard on this poor kid. And then he basically comes up to him and kind of nuzzles him with tears in his eyes, and you can tell he loves the kid. But it's
Yeah,
important to balance the scales, and justice
yeah,
is
yeah.
or almost as important as mercy, or you could say that that's the whole Christian mystery or beauty, is that justice
Absolutely.
is absolute. The world must be just, but God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son in order to
Yep.
take it from imbalance to balance, and that he would pay the debt. Now that's the kind of
Yeah,
thing that makes atheists, their heads explode and say, "What? Why are you telling me fairy tales?" And I'd say
yeah.
that kind of there's something about that does ring profoundly true. And
Absolutely.
as I get older, I'm thinking, look, I'm going to trust the story and the truth that
Yeah,
it seems to have more than I can trust, the fact that when I try to explain it to myself in my sophisticated adult American English,
yeah,
that doesn't seem to have the power or the truth to it. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go with a story because the
yeah,
story feels more true. And I guess maybe it's a matter of, I don't know. I mean, this might be self-flattering, self-justifying, but I'm thinking that maybe it's a matter of humility, that you should not
yeah,
give stories that feel powerful, that punch you in the gut, just because you can't explain them adequately in a way that makes sense now. And if you think they're only fairy tales for a past age, well, you should at least
yeah,
stop and think, okay, it has power. Why does it have power? Maybe you just don't understand that. Maybe there's a way in which that is true, even if it's
yeah.
not some literal thing about, a man and a woman eating a forbidden fruit.
That's great. I couldn't. That's a great description of things, both from Lewis and the wider human condition. It just makes me think of a couple things. One would be like I can remember thinking when I read this when I was older, and the whole series, when I read the whole series again, and I thought to myself, there's Jesus and the atonement, Jesus dying for our sins. Yeah, I know that story, and as a believer, as a Christian, that must be important. But there's a way that world that Jesus lived in, and I didn't get this until I moved to Egypt. It's totally different than my world. Like I didn't live in a desert. I didn't live in a world where people are walking around in sandals and robes and stuff. And I saw people like that in Egypt, so that made more sense to me. But then when I remember thinking, like, when I read this, obviously I didn't live in a world with magical lions, but there's a way that it resonates better somehow. Now I don't want to be, what would the word be? I'm being heretic, being a heretic here. Not that this is more true than the Christian tradition, but there is a way that Lewis's whole arc, particularly around what you just were saying about mercy and the original sin, like original sin happens in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe with Edmund. It happens in this book with Diggory, because I think you're too soft on Diggory. When he rings the bell, if you remember, he grabs Polly's arm. He's like, "I'll do whatever the F I want," and back
That's
off.
true.
Like
That's
he's kind of
true.
mean to her at that moment. And
You're
she's like,
right.
"Don't do this. That's a mistake." And he's like, "I'm gonna do it." And so curiosity, which goes to the whole eating the apple of wisdom at Genesis, right? Is we think we're academics, so being curious seems a virtue. We should be curious, and I agree with that. But like, there seems like a moment like curiosity is maybe not such a good thing, and that can lead to original sin. So, anyways, I agree with you. Like, there's a way that Lewis, and it's not an easy notion of mercy, but like Aslan, at first, Diggory doesn't think he's going to let Aslan's going to let him take the apple to his mother, but he's like, "Take the apple, you got it, it's yours," and
Right.
it's just like, oh
Yeah.
my God. Like I can remember crying at that scene, like, wow, he let him take it.
Yeah.
It's he's
Yeah.
like, this is
Yeah.
acceptable. It's
Yeah.
it's a just this mercy kind of. So I'm with you on like how this is such a great example of all those parts of the human condition and the Christian story too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. You corrected me again, this time morally speaking, because I was I forgot, and I didn't mean to. And I
Yeah.
finished the book, and then I had to go on a trip, so it's been
Yeah, 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 yeah.
long. It's not that long. It's only been about 2 weeks since I
You're
finished
getting
the book.
old, buddy. You're forgetting stuff. Yeah, right,
Well,
right.
yeah, the thing is, I've been doing that since I was about 12, but
Yeah, right,
I need to
right.
sleep better. But I had
Yeah,
forgotten that he was being a jerk, and even
yeah,
a little bit violent with Polly,
yeah,
and that's a sure sign of a no-no. In
yeah.
this is noble and also, yes, frankly, sexist, but not in some I mean,
No, no,
conservative
not
way.
yeah,
But he believes there's a difference between boys and girls, and
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
and to be stronger, and so they should be especially courteous and gentle with the what is the gentler sex. But I'd
yeah,
forgotten about that, maybe because I'm curious, and you say academic, and I just kind of
yeah,
blotted that out. But no, he gives strong signals that what Diggory
yeah,
is doing is the wrong thing. And he's also I did remember he is deceptive about it. Like he doesn't say, "Hey, let's
yeah,
solve this together." He just goes for
yeah,
it,
yeah,
and
yeah,
there's a tiny bit of something approaching violence there. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
was like Diggory, like, whoa, 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 what did I do?
What's wrong with what I did? Right, exactly. Because he doesn't think it's wrong until later when Azan confronts him with what he did wrong. You're right, and yeah, and he sees the consequences with the witch, right, and that's I mean,
You
yeah,
just
yeah,
you just played Aslan for me.
yeah.
I'll bet you're right that I'm supposed to be saying Aslan, but I've grown up saying Aslan, so I'm stuck with that.
And I think
But
either one's okay. I'm being British.
yeah,
Aslan, yeah,
yeah.
right,
Well, I
right.
mean, I guess that would be appropriate given that
Yeah,
Lewis
yeah,
wrote.
yeah, yeah,
But that's what Lewis does so well, in that he will show you yourself, and he will
yeah,
show you your vices. Like
yeah, yeah,
screw tape letters, for God's sake. And I can't remember which is it. Till We Have Faces, the one where it's a redo of the Greek.
yeah.
Uh,
That's till we have faces. Yeah, yep, yep.
and the heroine goes on trial, and
Yeah,
she's told to tell her story, and
yeah,
she finishes the story, and then she realizes that was it, and then she
yeah,
realizes,
yeah.
holy cuss word, and she reflects on it. She realizes, I am guilty. I just said what happened, and now
That's
that I
right.
look
That's
at it,
right. I forgot about that. Yeah,
now that
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
forced to
yeah,
confront it, I'm guilty, son of a gun. And that's what happens to Diggory, and that's what
yeah.
happened to me.
Right, right, right. Yeah. Okay, let me
Freaking-
jump in. I want to talk about Uncle Andrew at least for a minute here because
yeah, my hero.
because he is. I mean, when I was younger, I read it. He's like, this is a weird character. Like, I don't really get what's going on with him. Now that I'm older, and particularly as an academic, he is such a modern academic. Like, I mean, wait, where is he? Like there's a couple. This is in chapter 2 when Uncle Andrew is Diggory's uncle, and he's his mother's brother, and they live in this house. And Uncle Andrew has these magical rings, and he kind of tricks them, the two kids, into coming into his room, and there are these moments after Polly, the girl, disappears by being tricked into taking one of the rings.
Right.
I was just trying to find a quote where Diggory's like, "How could you do such a thing?" He's like, "Oh, come now, you're a commoner. You don't get what the high thinkers like us realize." And that's such an academic attitude, right? I mean, I'm an academic, you're an academic. I love being an academic. I love thinking. I love reading stuff and writing complicated papers. But you just see, like, talk because you said how that Lewis forces you to reflect on yourself. I was like,
Right.
God, I don't want to be Uncle Andrew. Like, he's such a jerk and such like that Nietzschean kind of attitude. Like,
Yeah.
you can't understand what I'm going through because I'm on a
Yeah.
different plane than you, right?
Yeah.
I just love that. I want every academic to read this book and be like, you are you Uncle Andrew or not? I don't know. What do you think about that?
No,
I mean,
that's really good, and it definitely takes you back to Eden with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
exactly,
It's
exactly. Yeah,
clearly not that God doesn't want you to explore the world and learn about the
right.
world. I'm not sure I can put it perfectly, but it's clear, that curiosity or the pursuit of knowledge is not the highest calling.
Exactly.
Something that can be done recklessly. There's all sorts of things that we have invented and discovered. And if we were better folk, like
Yeah, yeah,
Abby, that comes to Narnia and eventually becomes king, the first king
yeah,
of Narnia,
yeah.
they would probably never invent weapons at all, unless, well,
Right, right, right.
it's not right because Jadis is out there and you probably need swords to use on Jadis. So
Yeah, yeah,
I'm making mistakes. But anyway, there are mistakes you can make simply in the pursuit of knowledge that is not absolute
yeah,
and self-justifying. And the page you were looking at is exactly the one I wanted to go to. So I happen to have it
yeah,
here.
yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah. Read it for
It's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
in my book, it's page 28, and that's, you're right, it's in chapter 2, and it's about 4 pages in. Um,
Right. Okay. Yeah,
Holly
yeah,
has been tricked into disappearing, and I can't read. I was looking for a passage too where he sees the kids. I think they're sneaking around, exploring the houses that are connected by a kind of attic passageway, and
yeah,
they happen in on his secret room where he does all kinds of crazy Uncle Andrew shit. And he says something like, "Oh, good children, a child is just what I needed."
yeah,
And you hear that, and you're
yeah.
kind of like, because I was thinking,
You're right. Exactly.
I'd
Creepy.
forgotten the
Yeah.
story. Maybe he'd be a kindly old uncle like Uncle Diggory becomes in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which I just read. Nope, opposite.
Nope.
And the fact that he says needed, or if he doesn't say it there, he says it repeatedly. Everything is about what he needs. The whole world is there for him, and everything in his visual field is a tool that he can use. So Diggory says when he makes Polly disappear, and he's like, "Oh, good, it worked." And
Yeah. Yeah.
Diggory's like, "Well, where the hell did she go? Is she okay?" And he's like, "I don't know." So he
Right.
says, "Well, then it was jolly rotten of you." And I think he's talking about his godmother, fairy godmother, Aunt LaFay here, but
Yeah. Yeah.
also
Yeah.
everything that all applies to what he's just done to Polly. And Uncle Andrew says, "Rotten," with a puzzled look. "Oh, I see. You mean that little boys ought to keep their promises?" Because he's talked about how
Yeah.
he broke a promise to Morgan Le Fay. He says, "Well, very true, most right and proper, I'm sure, and I'm very glad you have been taught to do it. But of course, you must understand that rules of that sort, however excellent
Yeah.
they may be for little boys and servants and women, and even people in general, can't possibly be expected to apply to profound students and great thinkers and sages like people who do a Joe's Great Books podcast.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
No, no, no degree men like me who possess hidden wisdom are freed from common rules, just as we are cut off from common pleasures. Ours, my boy, is a high and lonely destiny." And that's
Yeah.
when I differ on Uncle Andrew, because I mean, I just don't think Tony, I mean, no offense, but I just don't think you know what it's like for us. Um, this, world with
Right.
strong
I
folks
can't achieve that level, Joe. I'm
who
not
have
there. Yeah.
who have
Yeah.
their own podcast, by the way, Three Kings, where books are sold.
No, but what you know what we should do? Here's a call out to our two friends from our undergraduate days, Ken Sheevy, Dean at Notre Dame,
Green Dean,
Matt Slaughter, Dean at Dartmouth.
the
They're at
lead
a
Dean.
higher level than us,
Oh,
clearly. We're
absolutely.
just working the, in the
Well, and then
whatever it is.
there's also Matt, who is tier 0 in the Lads Trip WhatsApp listserv, and then also Sly Flood, who's also tier 0,
Yeah, 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 exactly.
the
Yeah,
secret
yeah.
cup of
So
tears that
yeah,
tells
we're way
them
down below. Yeah,
every
exactly.
year to golf, or at least do something that looks like a bastardization of golf. Oh, actually, I'm the worst golfer on the trip. Tony is
I'm
the
glad you're coming to St. Andrews, by the way. That's a good call on your part, buddy. That's
absolutely.
good. Yeah,
I wouldn't have done it if you weren't there.
yeah, good, good.
Um,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I finally get
So
to
okay,
visit.
wait. So just another on the curiosity. Sorry, you could splice these things together if they make sense or not, because I'm jumping back to. Here, I'll put in an international relations point, which is that in when Jadis is in Charn, the world that they discover her in,
Great
the
name.
White Queen, and she talks about how the world ended. She talks about the deplorable word. First of all,
Mm,
which is interesting, thinking about language and words and stuff. and that's how she kills her sister and destroys the whole world basically. There's
I forgot.
all this literature that I've read about that's the nuclear weapons for Lewis because it's the 50s, you know, and nuclear weapon had been dropped 10 years before. The Brits were developing nuclear weapons, you know, so there's a moment like Lewis is like, is this an example of this ultimate weapon? Which goes back to the kind of knowledge thing because, like, you know, there's a whole thing discovering the secrets of the atom was obviously devastatingly consequential for the world in terms of weaponry, but it also has important scientific, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So there's an interesting kind of reflection there on, you know, whether or not that's a good or bad thing, I guess. So that just
Right.
maybe that doesn't quite work in what we're talking about, but
No,
it made me think of that. Yeah, yeah,
I think it fits perfectly, and that's complimenting you, but also me, because back when I was talking about the tree and pursuing knowledge,
yeah,
I
yeah,
was about to go atomic,
yeah,
and that
yeah.
stopped. And I remember, and I happened to watch a podcast because I mean, you know, we just had the anniversary of I can't remember how long ago. I forget the anniversary, but the anniversary of one of the bombs that we dropped on Japan.
Right,
I think
right.
I got that
Yeah,
right. So I watched a podcast, I think the Moynihan Report, and he was given a very careful defense of having dropped the bomb. And it is, of course, yeah, a huge, huge debate. That's what I talk about when I teach Gulliver's Travels. The story over and
uh-huh.
over again is that we're supposedly rational animals, you know, going
Yeah,
back to Aristotle, or also animals with the logos, uh,
yeah.
and that he said, you know, it seemed like we had this great promise we could do all these great things with reason in the beginning of the scientific and industrial revolution, and then you go to Lilliput, and Lilliput, of course, is England, and so
Yeah.
this is what we little vermin do with our rationality. We invent weapons, ever more destructive weapons. And this is
Oh, right.
1726, right?
Yeah.
Nowhere near
Wow.
modern, or, you know, at least 20th century weaponry. But he saw it coming. And, you know, the word, what is it? How does it put the deplorable word? That's
The
a great,
deplorable word. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think I haven't even looked into it, but it seemed to me pretty clear that he was saying that was that was analogous to the bomb that had been dropped, you know, 10 years
yeah,
before.
yeah.
And
That's a
yeah,
great. I didn't never thought about with Gulliver's Travel. That's a great kind of. I would love to be in your class, by the way. I'll do again an aside. This is totally unrelated to what we're talking about, but on Gulliver's Travels, the one time I met Father Ted Hesburgh,
mm,
as you know,
yeah,
former president of Notre Dame, he is obviously retired when we were there, but he had an office on the top of the library. And
yeah,
my sophomore, what was it, our great books, whatever the class was called, we had
yeah.
to read Gulliver's Travels, and I got in the elevator with a bunch of other people, and Hesburgh was in the elevator. I'm like, oh my God, it's Hesburgh. And he saw the book in my hand. He's like, oh, that's a wonderful book. What do you think of it? And I'm trying to come up with an explanation to Father Ted Hesburgh of what I
Right on
thought
the spot.
Gulliver's Travels in
On the
a
spot.
10-second elevator ride. I think I fumbled something. He's like, well, enjoy yourself. I'm like, okay, bye, Father Ted. Yeah.
Your
But
literal
earlier,
chance
yeah,
was your
yeah.
literal chance to give an elevator pitch,
Right,
um,
exactly,
and you blew it.
exactly. It's one of the
It's
most influential Catholic priests ever. You know,
yeah.
like I wish I could have told a better story to him. Yeah, yeah.
Look at you. You opened the door. So more anecdotes. My sister. I mean, apparently that elevator in the library. That's the one that has touchdown Jesus for you heathens who
Exactly. Yep,
only
yep.
understand football instead of you know,
Yeah.
religion and the world of ideas. My sister, who went to Notre Dame too, happened to see him in an elevator, or in that
Okay.
elevator, and I
Yeah.
can't remember when it was. But she wasn't a student there then. Apparently, she was back visiting friends, and she ran into Hesper. So that's like the wardrobe of Notre Dame. You go to the,
Right, exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he died, but he's probably still in that elevator.
I think he's still there. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah.
She, so she actually asked him if he would marry her, and he did, which was weird because he was a priest. So it was kind of
Right.
awkward. No,
Yeah, awkward. Yeah.
she asked him if he would preside over the marriage of her and her husband, and he
Uh-huh.
actually did. So Hesburgh was the priest that married my sister, Mariah. And so funny
Oh,
anecdote
that's
too.
cool.
Yeah, so that
Oh,
was
what a
the
great story. Yeah, yeah. That's
yeah.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
So where the hell were we? Oh,
Yeah,
Gulliver's.
sorry. The
Oh,
deplorable world
yeah,
word.
just
Yeah,
one
yeah,
last little
yeah.
detail about Gulliver's Travels is that Swift said that we needed to revise Aristotle's definition of a man, or the classical definition is a rational animal, as what was it? Something, you know, he used the Latin as something like, and I don't know Latin, but rationis capax, meaning that we
Yeah,
were,
yeah, yeah.
or you know, an animal, a rational animal who was, or an animal who was capable of reason, um,
Right.
you know, often exhibited the opposite of that. So you could say that's like the
Yeah.
through line of Gulliver's Travels and all the different four islands that he travels to. Should we go back to Uncle Andrew a little bit here?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
He is, I told you, I was playing around saying that he was my hero because he's
I know you were.
hilarious.
Yeah, you were goading me. Yeah, yeah.
I was, he's just hilarious.
Yeah.
And the line, let's see, um, Yeah, I think I broke off on page 28 where he said that, these rules are good for little boys and servants and women. And
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
it's just a great example of how you go back to the era of C.S. Lewis. And there's a line where he says something. Back then, everyone had lots of servants. And I could just imagine,
yeah.
the Marxists today saying, oh, what an evil man C.S. Lewis was because he says that. Yeah, it's true that,
It's true. It's
he
accurate. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's true that we think that's a bad thing, and that at least in principle servants should have the chance of having a better life and becoming upwardly mobile, right? But
right.
um, the fact he does show, at least the noblesse oblige, right? He shows the concern for people, and he specifically points out servants and women, and if you behave badly to either of those groups that are lower status in society, that is a huge sign of trouble. And even if you go
Yeah,
down to way down to the bottom of the scale of life or the scale of animal life, guinea pigs,
yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
Andrew uses guinea pigs as essentially
Right.
breeds. and, and I was going to pretend that I thought that was really funny, but it's not. And but it is funny that it shows how literally how low he will stoop and how he looks at everything in his visual field as a tool for his
Yeah,
own desires. But he finishes that paragraph by saying, "Great thinkers like me can't be expected to apply or can't be expected to follow these rules. No degree. Men like me who possess hidden wisdom are
yeah,
freed from common rules, just as we are cut off from common pleasures. Ours, my boy, is a high and lonely destiny." In that
yeah,
loneliness, he makes it very. I mean, you can tell he is going theological here. I think he's got
yeah, yeah,
Satan or any rebel against God who basically says, "Here's creation, all of creation. This is what I want to do with it. I want nothing." That's what
yeah.
Goethe's Faust's devil Mephisto says. He says, "I wish to
Right.
it ever come into being, and now that it's there, I want to destroy it." But the loneliness comes out, and then I was wondering, okay, is he actually thinking that explicitly? And yes, it becomes very clear when you get to Jadis, who is something like a Wonder Woman version, super or Uberfrau version of the kind of otherwise pathetic Uncle Andrew.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly.
On page 78, you get to certain cues that make it clear that he's got them in mind, that he was planting this seed. So what chapter is this? This is in the chapter about charm. So chapter 5, the deplorable word. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
it says, let's see, the last queen. Um, yeah, Jadis is actually kind of hot, by the way. Um,
She is hot. I agree with you. Yeah, yeah. She's
and
a
so
giant hotness. Yeah, yeah,
she's a Gal, what is it, Gal Gadot.
yeah.
Um,
Right, right. Exactly. Right.
and so she says, this is page 78 for me.
Yeah,
Um, uh, she's just come to life. And Diggory says, well, it was rather hard luck that you said the deplorable word and basically destroyed everything. She went Thanos, but times two.
yeah,
She
yeah,
erased everything except herself. She was the only living thing beneath the sun when her sister is about to win the war with her. And so he says, well, that was rather hard luck on them all the same. Diggory seems to be channeling Huck Finn, just the
yeah, yeah,
epitome of good-hearted innocence in youth. And so she replies, I had forgotten that you are only a common boy,
yeah,
invoking class or existential class. How should you understand reasons of state, capital S? You must learn, child, that what would be wrong for you or for any of the common people is not wrong in a great queen such as I, capital Q. The weight of the world is on our shoulders. We must be freed from all rules. And then in just a two-sentence analysis of why it's wrong to be this proud in the sense of defiant of the higher power and the moral rules that he has set down for everyone, including queens, including secretive geniuses like Uncle Andrew. We must be freed from all rules, and then ours is a high and lonely destiny. So she and Andrew
yeah,
are just painfully lonely the whole time, and that's what happens to you. If this is the world in which you're supposed to exist, God has made this world for you. If you try to step
yeah,
outside that circle so that you're over here or whoop, over here, it's very
yeah.
lonely. No one can
And
see.
here's even a further reiteration of that. I think was a great, which is the chapter called "The First Joke and Other Matters." Again, this will be
Yeah,
on a different probably page than yours. So my page is
right.
149, where this is where Ozan is singing the world into existence, and then they say, well, we need to go back to Uncle Andrew, and he says, like, Uncle Andrew says, of course it can't really be singing, he thought. I must have imagined it. I've been letting my nerves get on water. Whoever heard of a lion singing? And the longer and more beautiful the lion sang, the harder Uncle Andrew tried to make himself believe that he could hear nothing but roaring. A
Yeah, right.
fascinating moment where he
Yeah,
convinces himself that Aslan is not singing. Like he maybe there was a moment that he
yeah,
could have heard it, but it's the loneliness point, like you said, he's cut, and that's what they say hell is, right? Hell is being cut off from everybody and being
Yeah.
all by yourself. And that's hell. And it's like you can't, it goes back to the whole thing about language being so central to our
Perfect.
ability to
Yeah.
communicate. Like Uncle Andrew can't hear anything but roaring. And I think that's
Yeah.
perfect. Right? I mean, he's
Yeah.
punished himself. He punishes himself in a way, right? I mean, so yeah, yeah,
Exactly right. Yeah, all that is wonderful, and Lewis does such a good job of teaching it and reminding you
yeah,
of these things. And for people who think that books are all about interpretation and there's no way
yeah,
we can connect other minds because we're all unique. I think books prove it over and over again, or us reading books, we prove it over and over again because we come up with the same things as possible to teach. And this is
yeah,
exactly the kind of stuff I wanted to go to. It fits perfectly with what
yeah,
we said before. And the one passage that I think maybe you didn't read, but it's kind of a cap to it, is at 150 to 151. It's in that long paragraph that begins, "When the great moment came and the beast spoke." He made
yeah, 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 yeah. I see. It. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
the whole point. He didn't hear any words. He heard only a snarl. That's when
yeah,
the lion, Aslan, said perhaps the two most beautiful words in the book, Narnia, "Awake." Uh,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
he
yeah,
Uncle Andrew misses the whole point. He didn't hear any words. He heard only a snarl. Maybe that's what you read. I was looking for it, so I couldn't see. And when the beast spoke in answer, he heard only barkings, growlings, bayings, and howlings. I love the way he gives all the detail, all the different kinds of
yeah,
making sounds, different words. And when they laughed, well, you can imagine. So there's that second person address kind of withdrawing
yeah,
from the story. And it sets us up for the next line. And this is the one I was fishing for. "That was worse for Uncle Andrew than anything that had
yeah,
happened yet." So what you just summarized it. I'll put it in the same words or in different words. The rational animal, the
yep,
animal logos with language, he
yep,
forsakes all that. He gives up,
yeah,
which he gives up reason. The guy who thinks he's so smart because
exactly.
he has changed his own being by
Yeah,
continuing to be proud, he has descended down the scale of being in a way that you see in book after book. And I don't think
yeah.
I take the time to fish them out for today, but let's say Paradise Lost. I much
Oh, brilliant.
noted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
This is
yeah.
actually the new book, the one that I had put notes in for like 25 years, burned to shit in the fire. So these are just like the 35 most important passages I get. When
Yeah,
Satan, who has rebelled against God, and the way
yeah,
Milton embellishes the story,
yeah,
decides so they war against God. God trounces them as God
yeah,
would, and they decide in a big senate that they put together in hell to rebel against him in some way, and that's where you get
yeah,
the demonium, all demons. They come to
yeah,
Congress and they decide what to do, and they ultimately decide they can't war against God openly, and
yeah,
can't just settle for hell. They can't just sue for peace or repent. What they can do is they can go ruin his Ken and Barbie dolls because they heard these new creations, Adam and Eve, and so he decides to go ruin them. Satan
yeah,
becomes a kind of hero, a mock hero,
yeah,
and flies to Eden to do it. And the way he decides to do it shows the kind of indignity and the descent that he has suffered. And
yeah,
he inhabits different animals, and I forget the details, but he goes from something like a lion to something like an antelope to something like
yeah,
a warthog, and then finally to the serpent, the last
exactly.
of
Yeah,
the things. If
yeah, yeah.
there are many other books that do this. Here's one that I got lots of post-it notes onto. Boethius' Consolation of Philosophy,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and he
It's a
said this
great
is
one. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so Milton. This is like 1667, I think, the first edition. This is 524.
yeah,
Boethius
yeah,
basically lived the life of Socrates, the guy that one of the guys he had studied for his whole life. And I won't pick out the passage here either, but he points out what Lewis points out, that if you behave in a certain way, you become that way. And I think you
yeah,
mentioned Space Trilogy. I think
yep,
this introduces the concept of bent men. Like you have
yep,
a piece of soft metal. If you bend it in a certain way and kind of twist it, it's just
yeah,
impossible to flatten it out ever again. It's always got that
yeah.
kink. And if you twist yourself in a certain way for long enough, as Uncle Andrew is or has, it's very tough to get flat again.
I don't
And
know if you've ever read
your being.
Lewis's The Great Divorce. Have you ever read that book?
I'm so bad at titles and books that I don't know. I'm sure I
It's
have.
the story. It's the
The first
story
one I
where
know,
they take a bus ride. People
oh,
die,
with
and
the
they're on
hard
a
grass,
bus, and they go to this world that's like purgatory. But
right?
everybody is their sin is what causes them to stay there. There's a few people who can take the bus further on, but it's exactly what you're saying. Like they make themselves into their own sin, and I
Yeah,
think that's it's a wonderful little like story kind of. I think that's great that
I have
captures this idea. Yeah.
I have read that. I think we might have talked about that in the Christmas Carol talk. That's
Maybe, yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
one of
yeah,
the
yeah.
hard grass, right? the grass
Yes,
is greener
exactly. The
on
hard
the
grass. That's it.
yeah.
Yep, yep,
And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
glad you brought that up because that was one of the things that I thought was really cool about what you had said about Uncle Andrew is that it's a choice, and
Yeah.
it's right back to Till We Have Faces. God doesn't punish you; you punish yourself.
You punish yourself. Right,
And
exactly.
you
Yeah,
make
yeah.
you have the choice to become one thing or another, and these the characters that suffer serious justice choose wrong. It is kind of happy that Uncle Andrew does improve after the story, and a kind of an epilogue. We're told that he
He does,
becomes
yeah,
more
he's okay in the end. He kind
yeah,
of becomes a little more, yeah,
yeah,
self-aware, and he tells
uh,
a damn fine girl. That's my favorite line. She
damn
was a
fine
damn
girl.
fine girl, right? I mean,
Right.
he talk about
Yeah,
Jadis, and you're like,
yeah.
it's kind of because there's also the funny scene. Again, this is I don't know how you put this in at all, but like you did talk about the one scene when like suddenly spring is emerging and they're all getting they feel something, and there's a line about Uncle Andrew. He's like, Uncle Andrew felt thoughts and felt things he had never felt, he had felt in a
Right.
long time. And
Right.
it's like, yeah, we're old guys, we know what that
Yeah.
means, have those
Well,
feelings when you're older.
one of those passages is it was the very next thing after we broke off in the passage where Aslan brings the animals, and it's
Yeah,
fascinating. They kind of curl up out of the land and
yes, yeah, exactly,
like
yeah,
kind of grow like fruit. And
yeah,
that line where it says, "And he wanted to run at somebody and either hug them or fight them." And
right.
so it's animal life. And the next line is something like Uncle Andrew kind of looks at Jadis and he's like, that's a dead fine girl.
Yeah, like,
Right?
I'm kind of into you, girl. Yeah, yeah, right,
You might want
right,
to go fight
exactly.
with Jadis. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. He's springing to new life. Uh,
yeah,
I only had
yeah,
a couple of last things that I wanted to do. They're super fun stuff. Let's just read one line from Jadis just because I think it's so hilarious in the age of Trump.
yeah.
And we don't have to dwell on this too much, but this is back this is in the deplorable word chapter.
Okay, yeah.
And she says, "Where are you from? I want to go there." And they're like, "Buh, buh, 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 buh." And so they don't want to give out too much information. And so Diggory says something like, "I'm sure you wouldn't like our world at all. Yeah, it's not her sort of place, is it, Polly? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. It's very dull, not worth seeing, really." And then she responds, "It will soon be worth seeing when I rule it."
Yeah, right, right.
And it's just so funny. And I mean, don't want to go Trump, but it just reminded me of the kind of the way I see Trump, especially if you make him into kind of a cartoon version. That
Yeah, yeah.
he's got some overlap with these two characters, but
Oh yeah, yeah,
he's got to make
yeah.
Earth. Jadis is going to make Earth great again.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
exactly. I like it. Well, that's a great tagline. Jadis, let's make Earth great again. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
there's a line in page 90 where how does she put it? Well, she says, "Peace, you talk far too much." I think she's talking to Uncle Andrew at this point when she's managed to get back to Earth, as you summarize. "Listen to your first task. I see we are in a large city. Procure for me at once a chariot or a flying carpet or a well-trained dragon or
Or a
whatever is
dragon. Yeah,
usual, whatever is usual for royal and noble persons in your land.
right.
Bring me to places where I can get clothes and jewels and slaves fit for my rank. Tomorrow, I will begin the conquest of the world."
Yeah,
I don't know if this is the very best line in that page, but the note I had was just that um, she is a utilitarian. I don't know what the etymology is, but it's like she'll make you into her tool.
you're
Everything
right.
she
That's good.
sees,
I like
she
that.
just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
assumes that it's
So
all
here's
for
the
her.
this maybe that won't come up, but here's the picture in my edition of her
Same
riding
one.
the chariot in London.
Yeah.
That's where I thought she's so hot. Like, I mean, a woman riding a chariot like that through London, I'd be like, "You're mine, baby." You
You're like, she's a damn fine girl. She's a damn
Dumb fine girl, right? Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
fucking
yeah,
strong woman.
yeah.
So I mean, there's so much left in the book that we could discuss, but I know it's really, really late.
Yeah, it's late for me. Yeah, I'm
So
getting kind of done here. Yeah, yeah.
if you
So
wouldn't mind, I did want to read one thing that I thought was just kind of gorgeous from Lewis, and then one thing, interestingly enough, oh, that might have been one of the things I was going to say is that way back when that Chesterton, I think he brought this up when we talked about Tolkien and eucatastrophe.
mhm.
Chesterton says that you talk to young kids and you think you want to shield them from stories where people get their comeuppance or justice, and he's like, no, that's
Yeah.
not it at all. Kids want justice, right? They want
Yep.
he disobeyed, he needs to be punished, right? There's a passage from G.K. Chesterton about Chaucer that seems to me equally applicable to Lewis and what I think about Lewis. Now, the place it comes from in Lewis, in my book, is 2:18 to 19, and it's about a tree that Diggory grows because, as you point out, Aslan
Yeah.
does grant him this grace, this
Yeah.
suspension of the rules, the mixing of the worlds that you would think might be, you've been led to believe wouldn't happen, but it
Yeah.
seems like it could be just a kind of justification for miracles. God does what God wants to do.
Yeah.
So he gives the apple. His mother does recover, and Diggory plants the core of the apple, and a tree grows from
Right.
it. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, are we back to ringing the bell? Should he do that? Should he get permission?
Yeah.
Does it, and it turns out to be benevolent, and the tree does have some of the magic. It can't cure you, but it is super, super healthy. And so
Yeah.
on page 219, it says the apples that come from the tree that cured Diggory's mother, they were extremely good for you, though not fully magical. But
Yeah.
this is the beautiful line, inside itself, in the very sap of it, the tree, so to speak, never forgot that other tree in Narnia to which
Yeah.
it belonged. And that's the tree that eventually gets blown down in a wind, and they cut it up and they make it into
Oh,
the
wardrobe. Right.
wardrobe, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So
Yeah.
or they make it into the elevator in the library of Notre Dame. But
Right.
so
Exactly.
here, and I think that's one of those things that one of those bits of the Christian myth that just seems so potent to me,
Hmm.
hard to describe. But you could say it's an indication of our current status in a fallen world,
Yeah.
fallen descent. And the fact that the tree gets less and less potent or magical as time goes on. It reminds me about Genesis, how the ages diminish as time goes on until like
Oh, yeah.
let's live for 900 years and somebody else for 1,800. Then they kind of decline 700 and 400 and 300, and they finally fixes the date at 120, which is a hell of a guess because that's just about the age where almost
Right.
nobody goes past.
Yeah.
So Chaucer talking about, excuse me, G.K. Chesterton, I got to learn more about him. Talking about Chaucer, writes this passage that doesn't even really, it doesn't mention Chaucer, but it's in a book on Chaucer. And he's saying that
Hmm.
Chaucer gets at. I think this is what C.S. Lewis gets at, and what that passage about the tree always remembering where it came from gets at too. He says, there is, and this is a long quotation, pardon me, there is at the back of all our lives an abyss of light, more blinding and unfathomable than any abyss of darkness. And it is the abyss of actuality, of existence, of the fact that things truly are, and that we ourselves are incredibly and sometimes almost incredulously real. It is the fundamental fact of being as against not being. It is unthinkable, yet we cannot unthink it, though we may sometimes be unthinking about it. Unthinking, and especially, he says, unthinking. He likes to play with words, kind of
Yeah.
manners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Usually
Yeah.
does work with it. For he who has realized this ability knows that it does outweigh literally to infinity all lesser regrets or arguments for negation. Satan.
Oh, right.
Yet
Yeah.
under
Yeah.
all our grumblings, there is a subconscious substance of gratitude. I love that the best. Under all
Yeah.
our grumblings, there is a subconscious substance of gratitude. I'll come back to that and then I'll finish it. I mean, I'll finish and then I'll come back to it. That light of the positive is the business of the poets because they see all things in the light of it more than do other men. Chaucer, oh, he does mention Chaucer, was a child of light and not merely of twilight, the mere red twilight of one passing dawn of revolution. Now think about Charn,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
or the gray twilight of one dying day of social decline. The fact that he invokes that kind of image, he's not thinking of
Yeah.
those who didn't exist yet, or at least hadn't written Narnia yet, but
Yeah.
the same images come through.
Yeah.
Chaucer was the immediate heir of something like what Catholics call the primitive revelation, capital P, capital R. Never heard of it outside of this. That glimpse that was given of the world when God saw that it was good. Right, we're right back into the creation of Narnia. And so long as the artist gives us glimpses of that, it matters nothing that they are fragmentary or even trivial. Whether it be the mere fact that a medieval court poet could appreciate a daisy, or that he could write in a sort of flash of blinding moonshine of the lover who, quote, slept no more than does the nightingale. That's a quote from the Canterbury Tales talking about the squire
Okay.
character, who's a Romeo. These things belong to the same world of wonder as the primary wonder at the very existence of the world, higher than any common pros and cons or likes and dislikes, however legitimate. Creation was the greatest of all revolutions. Fits that chapter perfectly. And I think the idea is that you're supposed to appreciate the wonder of creation now in the same way that the characters in Narnia appreciate it as it's being vocalized into.
Oh, right. 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 Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
hard to do that. It's hard to remember that, but great poets do that. And Lewis seems to me to do that a lot. Almost done. It was
Yeah.
for that, as the ancient poet said, that the morning stars sang together. In the most modern
Oh.
poets, like the medieval poets, may descend very far from the height of realization and stray and stumble and seem distraught. But we shall know them for the sons of God. I should have put a comma there. We shall know them for the sons of God when they are still shouting for joy. This is something
Oh.
much more mystical and absolute than any modern thing that is called optimism. For it is only rarely that we realize, like a vision of the heavens filled with a chorus of giants, the primeval duty of praise.
Oh, that's a great God, what a good quote to end on.
It's
That's really
super
good. I
old.
like that. And oh yeah, there's so much in there that does echo. Of course, Lewis must have read Chesterton. I would imagine
Yeah.
he would have. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if they met or so because
Yeah.
Chesterton died in the 30s, maybe. I don't know, but yeah,
I should
that's
look it up, but I don't remember.
that's brilliant. No, that's great. That is a great quote. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's beautiful.
So
And the last comment I have about it is just that it's just so good to remember it because Like you ever watch that show, The Good Place?
Oh, I
Um,
love that show. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Yeah,
Loved it a
yeah,
lot. And I remember there's a sweet line toward the end when Eleanor Shellstrop, Kristen
yeah,
Bell, the actress, says in a sensitive, tender way that is, I think, totally true. She says, I guess we're always going through life, we're always a little bit sad because underneath
yeah,
it all, we know we have to die. And that,
yeah,
it's powerful at the end when they actually have people die and they die in different ways.
yeah,
Jason Mendoza's, driven all the go-karts you can drive. And so that's it. He's gone. He just kind of goes into nothingness or into
yeah,
up to the universe.
yeah,
So that's a profound thing, but it also reminded me of the way modern minds, and especially secular or maybe even atheist minds like Christopher Hitchens, sometimes turn over the coin and only look at the negative side. He always used to say, loved to say, this is a guy, critiqued Mother Teresa.
yeah, yeah, right, yeah, yeah,
The worst things people do, they do it because of religion. And I would say you turn over the coin and you look at the grateful side. I think Chesterton answers Eleanor Shellstrop and says, yeah, but underneath it all is also this deep, or should be this deep, profound gratitude. We came out of
yeah,
nothing. We were never,
yeah,
did we earn our own existence? Do we, all the
yeah,
things that
yeah,
we've loved, all the good things we've had, did we somehow merit that? No, that's all
yeah,
grace. That's all a gift. And if it's not infinite, well, good grief. What do
yeah,
you want from me? And
right,
Hitchens, and I say, well, yes, you're right that people who go to war, blow themselves or other people up. Yeah, they sometimes they do that because of religion. But think about the people who live quiet lives, all for decades of service.
yeah,
Think nuns, think Mother
yeah,
Teresa.
yeah,
It's a lot harder to do than to get revved up in a frenzy and then push a button once. To get
yeah,
up in the morning when it's freezing cold and your bones are aching and you're probably in more shape than the poor that you're serving to go out and do that stuff that I'm
yeah.
not claiming I do.
No, no, me neither.
uh,
No,
to do that on a daily basis, what gives you the fortitude, the will to do
yeah,
that? That's also religion. Quiet
yeah.
itself doesn't make the headlines, but
And
it's a
it just the last thing I would say is just on as you were reading the whole quote, the thing that came to mind is the title of C.S. Lewis's like spiritual biography, which is Surprised by Joy. Like
uh,
his whole account is like, people think of Christianity as this dour thing, and there is a sadness about death. But he's like, if you really get Christianity, it's about joy. It's about this kind of, and it's not happiness like in a fleeting sense. Joy, he argues, is this much deeper thing. It's like a constant. There can be sadness, but it's something much different. And I think that's what made me think of when you were reading the Chesterton quote. That's what came to my mind. Yeah.
I do not remember Surprised by Joy. I got to go back to it. Beautiful way to stitch it all together at the end, Tony. Thank
Yeah.
you so
Good.
much.
All right.
Very good
Excellent.
talking to you. And before we go,
Okay. Yeah.
Three Kings, Amazon. I'll bet it's
Excellent.
awesome. I'm
Thanks.
looking forward to doing it. Maybe we'll talk about it sometime. Good talking to you, man. Thank you very much.
You too, buddy. Thanks. Good to talk
Bye.
to you. All right. Take care, Joe. Bye. Bye.
Love that Tony guy.